Good afternoon. I'm Norman Cravens, President of the Chamber of Commerce. I have no other paying role in the community. I'm going to rearrange the order slightly from this so that we can have the posting of the colors first.
Forward. March. Detail. Halt. Right. Feet. Halt. Go. Present. Huh.
And I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Huh. Left. Feet. Forward. March. Forward. March.
And we would like to thank the Inglewood Police Department Honor Guard. for that. Okay, you may be seated for the moment. I first want to thank our 8 sponsors for tonight's, this afternoon's event. First, Centinela Hospital Medical Center, a gold sponsor. Also a gold sponsor, Hollywood Park Land Company. Another gold sponsor, LAX Properties LLC, which is actually the casino. And Madison Square Garden, which of course is actually the Forum. Our silver sponsors are AECOM, which is a group of great engineers. Republic Services, Inc., which is the new waste hauler in town. And the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, which is essentially Jan Vogel. And I would also like to introduce the head table at this time, because we've had a few adjustments in that too. Starting on the far right, your left, Gerard McCallum from the Land Company. Jan Vogel. Mayor Butts, who you'll hear from later. Linda Bradley, CEO of Centinela Hospital Medical Center, which has been winning awards for everything. Not only the parent company, Prime Healthcare was just named one of the top 15 healthcare companies in the United States. And Sentinel Hospital, for the second year in a row, was named one of the 100 best hospitals in the country. And from Republic Services, Jerry Fowler. I'm sorry, Jay Fowler. And to his right, our Vice President, Eric Colley, who's sitting in the spot for ACOM, who are here, but they chose not to be at the head table, and that is Mr. Denke, I believe. Did I miss anybody?
Get a small print, right?
I know they got me great tickets in New York. This is Nick Spaminato. And now, before we dine, if you'll allow me to sit down and stop bothering you, we'll have the invocation from Olivia Patterson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can we all stand, please? Let there be peace on earth is a common plea across the world in hope of ending wars, mass shootings, and terrorist bombings. A Buddhist quote says, "It is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles." Then the victory is yours, and it cannot be taken from you. The Bible says our struggle is not with flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world and spiritual forces of evil. The bottom line is, until we make peace within our inner selves, we will not have peace on earth, the peace that we long for. Dear Heavenly Creator, we thank you for landing us in this beautiful city of Inglewood and in the greatest, most powerful country on earth. We thank you for giving us your word in so many different forms that can help us to understand the driving forces behind our actions. I ask you to reveal to us each individually the fears, the lies, the jealousies, the resentment, the mistrust and/or hatred that we harbor in our minds against each other. Show us the truth that will lead us to our inner peace as we continue to pray for peace in our homes, in our communities, and in our world. In Christ's spirit, I thank you. Amen.
Okay, please enjoy your lunch. From the 3rd District, Eloy Morales. And I understand the councilman from the 2nd District was here earlier, but is not any longer to be done that. And I'm pretty sure our city treasurer, Wanda Brown, is here. With that, I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker for today with, I'm not sure what annual State of the City speech this is, because it was going on for years. When I was still.
It's my third.
It's his third. But anyway, I'd like to introduce the mayor of our city and the man who has, in my opinion, brought the city back on the right course financially and politically, Jim Butts.
because when I started with the city when I was 19, he was a grown-up, and he taught me everything I know. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge two members of the Honor Guard, Officer David Villamil and Officer David Ramirez. Officer Villamil served 2 tours in Afghanistan and Ramirez 1 tour. So can we stand up and give them a hand? Now, for those of you that have other things to do, you'll be glad to hear that this year's speech is shorter than last year's. But I'm going to tell you something very interesting. The first speech I did when I was on the job for 2 months was 17 pages. And it was like, hey, I'm here, I hear some bad things, but everything will be all right, let's go home, right? And then the second speech, then I knew how bad things were, right? And all of you that work for people or you report to boards of directors or bosses, you know it takes less time to say it's all good than, well, there's a problem, but it's not my fault. And this is how bad the problem is, and this is how I think we're going to fix it, and I'll get back to you. That takes a long time. So good afternoon, and thank you for attending my third State of the City address. And first of all, let me thank the Chamber President and the Public Servant Emeritus, Norm Cravens, who has led everything there is to lead in the city of Inglewood. Taught me half the stuff I know. And the entire Inglewood Airport Chamber of Commerce for once again hosting this event. Our chamber is superb, and its work has added energy to the progress we've experienced recently in Inglewood. And I was going to recognize my council colleagues, but Norm did that. I'd like to recognize briefly our city manager, Artie Fields. Our city attorney, Cal Saunders. Assistant City Manager Michael Falco. Assistant City Manager and Chief Financial Officer David Esparza. Our new Chief of Police Mark Fronarata. And our new Director of Public Works Louis Atwell. Now, a year ago when they were new, I used to introduce representatives of Madison Square Garden as our special friends, but Nick lives here now. He's the general manager. It's like having friends that always come over. They stay up late, they eat up all the snacks, use up all the hot water, and leave the TV on all night. So he's just like, you know, a friend now. Some new members of the city's contracted waste service family are here in numbers. Now, ordinarily, your trash company is not something you think about unless there's a problem. You put the trash out in the evening or before the morning of the pickup, and it disappears. And unless you come home and there's trash in the street or the cans are turned over, you don't think about it. But every year, I attend the Inglewood Swap Meet held at Hollywood Park, and about 200 or more residents put up booths to sell old items. Now let me tell you, before I was the mayor, I would never go to a swap meet. I just wasn't interested. But when you're an elected official, you know what a gathering of 200 voters is? It's a chance for a free poll of how the city's doing. And so you're out there face to face, naked to the world, to hear the good and the bad of how government is delivering for the residents. And one theme in the comments that I heard from the residents universally that was constant and unsolicited, the changeover in waste haulers was an overwhelming positive for the cleanliness of the city. The bulk item pickup service Republic provides is magnificent, and the people love it. Republic comes within 48 hours, and on the average within 24 hours to pick up abandoned couches and other items dumped in the alleys and on the curbs. In less than 9 months, they've changed the look of our streets and alleys. They ran a shred day the day of the swap meet, and did mass shredding for the residents, and they sponsored our Earth Day at City Hall 2 weeks ago. From Republic, we have the area president, Ron Krall, general manager, Jay Fowler, Juan Rodriguez and Andre Griggs, operation managers, Gilbert Alvarado, route supervisor for Inglewood, and Don Harris and Sam Pena, the community liaisons, and Martin Morales, our Inglewood office manager. Welcome to Inglewood, and please give them a hand. Now, I gotta tell you something, this is an aside. I see Don all the time, all over the place. And let me tell you something, she's always smiling. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't drink, but if I'm in a restaurant and I see her drinking, I'm having two of whatever she has. Today, as I view the current state of our city, I remain very optimistic about Inglewood and its future. Sure, we've seen some tough times, as have cities throughout the nation. And as a city, we'll have to respond to additional budgetary challenges in the next budget cycle. But I can tell you this, we've been a resilient community. And it's resilient because of business people like you, because of residents like we have, who are committed to the city and poised and ready to participate in this continued economic resurgence of our city. Our municipal government is populated by a number of hardworking, dedicated employees who want more than to just have a job and come to work. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And like all of us, they are proud of what they do and where they work. It's my responsibility, working with the council and through the city manager, to build an effective organization that will provide the environment for business and economic development to thrive, and a sense of order, stability, and safety that attracts and retains middle and upper middle class families. Now, I want to tell you that this is nothing that I do alone. This is something that is done through the employees of the city, through the policy direction of the council. And you know, when I would get up here in the beginning, I would always say, my colleagues and I, this and that. And then in year 2, my second series, I said, well, my mother said, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And so I mentioned my colleagues. And then now I'll tell you, it takes a council majority to get things done. And we have a solid council majority to get things done. When I first campaigned for this office, I told residents that I intended to focus on several key areas that included, 1, assessing and improving the condition of our city's infrastructure, its roadways, water and waste delivery systems, public safety and crime, assessing the effectiveness of our residential sound installation program and economic development, and stabilizing our financial situation. I said I would attempt to attract major retail, entertainment, and other commercial anchors to Inglewood in order to generate jobs and sales tax revenues. This in turn would bolster the city's general fund, and the general fund we know is important because it's the pot of money from which we pay for core city services like police, fire, recreation, code enforcement, library, tree trimming, and services for citizens. Last year, I discussed a series of management failures, operational and bureaucratic incompetencies that exacerbated the impact of the recession and the housing market crash on the city's financial picture. Starting with the return of temporarily former city manager Mark Weinberg, who was succeeded by city manager Artie Fields, we've steadily assembled a group of high-performing, highly competent executive staff to complement the high-performing directors and managers that remain from past administrations. Mr. Fields came into a situation rife with landmines and has endured needless criticism by some members of the body and performed in an exemplary manner. Could we please take a moment and acknowledge his good work? He deserves a standing ovation. Thank you, Artie. Mr. Fields' new team is anchored by Assistant City Manager Michael Falco, who we affectionately refer to as Jamaica Mike. Because over the years and to this day, he does so many jobs and functions for the city that he doesn't get paid for. Mike's the equivalent of Lamar Odom, a 7-footer who can play center, both forward positions, and dribble the ball up court behind his back and shoot with either hand. Mike, we appreciate you. Our other assistant city manager is David Esparza, and he also serves as our chief financial officer. He has been a high-level executive in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and we were fortunate to lure him here from another prospective employer because he wanted to work in a place where he could make a difference. He's a proven all-star in his administrative prime. This is Inglewood's equivalent of Miami trading for Shaquille O'Neal and winning a championship the next year. Thank you, David. Mr. Lewis Atwell is our new Public Works Director. He took over a department that was being managed temporarily by Harry Frisbee after the sudden departure of the prior director. I want to publicly thank Harry for the outstanding job he did as interim director. We're so fortunate that he was here to steady the ship. He's a can-do and customer service-oriented professional. Thank you, Harry. Mr. Lewis Atwell was a deputy in the city of Downey in Public Works, and our selection of him as our director was the equivalent of making a second-round draft pick that turns out to be an all-star. Working with Harry, they revolutionized the service and production paradigm in Public Works, and I'll recap some of their accomplishments later, very quick accomplishments. Speaking of all-stars, we had another second-round draft pick right here in our own backyard. Under his leadership, violent crime is falling demonstrably. And remember this, Mark and Lewis, Willis Reed, Dennis Johnson, Manu Ginobili, Danny Ainge, Gilbert Arenas, and Dennis Rodman all went in the second round as well. And they were all stars. This is my third address, but my second full year in office, and this has been a year of progress. 2 years ago, 1 month after the job as mayor, I classified the state of the city as optimistic. Last year in the state of the city, I classified us as focused on moving forwards toward rebuilding and revitalizing. This year, I classified the state of the city as promises kept. We've actually begun rebuilding our infrastructure. We raised water and sewer rates and began a capital improvement program, making upgrades to all facets of our water transport system. We're proposing the installation of a new water well to allow us to pump more of the water available to us beneath the streets of Inglewood. This will be a $2.5 million project. We'll be able to lessen our costs to obtain water by pumping more of our water as opposed to purchasing over 50% of our water from other systems at higher rates. This summer, we'll begin the replacement of 4.5 miles of pipes on 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th Avenues, 78th, 79th, 101st, 102nd, 104th Streets, Grace and Eucalyptus Avenues at an estimated cost of $2 million. This summer, we'll begin street improvements on Van Ness from Century to Imperial, La Brea Avenue from Hillcrest to 104th Street, and we've begun a sidewalk reconstruction project of 21,000 feet of diamond sidewalks, 13,600 feet of driveway approaches, and 1,200 linear feet of curbs and gutters. Now, before I was the mayor, that would have bored me, but I just got excited. I get excited when I see that stuff. Go, Lewis and Harry. In 2012, Inglewood experienced an overall 1% decrease in crimes reported compared to 2010. We had 2 homicides year to date, which extrapolates to 6 for the year at this pace. If this holds, it would be the lowest homicide total in Inglewood on record. Violent crime remains down compared to when I took office, with homicides down over 30%, aggravated assaults are down 13%, the crime of rape is down 18%, and auto thefts down 9%. Our overall crime rate remains the lowest it's been since the 1970s. Again, I want to give recognition to Chief Mark Veronorata, Captains Martin Sissick, Marie DiBernardo, Steve Overly, and the men and women of the Inglewood Police Department. We're also implementing a 4th civil gang injunction that will further suppress and eliminate gang activity in our city. And as you can see, we're proactively taking measures to keep the city safe, improve the quality of life in the community, and get our financial house in order by reducing expenses charged to the general fund. Many residents will benefit from improvements gained under the city's residential sound insulation program. Due to past mismanagement errors, the city had lost eligibility for over $36 million in sound mitigation funds. Last year, I discussed the self-inspection and corrective actions that we were taking to fix the problems. We instituted first an administrative and management audit of the entire program, and the findings were as follows: that more houses were placed into design than funds were available to complete construction. This caused the city to be unable to turn around year-end audit reports of completed homes. We had bad record keeping because we had a bad process for the archiving of invoices and reconciling that with the people that were paying the bills in finance. This resulted in the city being ineligible to receive the annual $9.2 million LAWA sound installation grants for the past 4 years. That comes to about $36.8 million. To start with, we hired a consultant who ran Burbank's successful RSI program to come and provide day-to-day assistance for the operations that we had money to fund. We contacted LAWA, the Los Angeles World Airport System, and invited their accounting personnel to spend 2 months in residence with our office to audit our records, to make themselves comfortable there had been no misappropriation of funds. I met with the president of the Board of Airport Commissioners to open dialogue with top management in LAWA. I also met with the executive director of LAWA, Gina Marie Lindsay, to discuss the framework of an agreement that would allow the city to resume eligibility for grants. Oh, you know, there's another friend of mine here. Negotiated with Michael Feldman, who used to be like one of my peers, a deputy executive director at LAWA. Michael, would you stand up? Please give him a hand, because I couldn't understand why I'm here. On the structure of the agreement. And the city sought and obtained a $15 million noise abatement grant from the FAA in December of 2012. I prepared a council initiative for the March 19th council meeting to ratify the agreement between the executive director of LAWA and myself. We retained a construction management firm to oversee and conduct the design and construction processes for insulating our homes here in Inglewood. And we're hiring an audit firm to complete the audits of past years of the program that were started by in-house staff and LAWA accountants. On March, I think it was 16th or something, after over a year of negotiations between myself and LAWA, I and the executive director signed an agreement with the airport system that will allow us to complete the installation of 1,000 homes in the next 12 months and 1,000 homes in the next 12 months following. And that's the equivalent of $50 million. This is real stuff, you know, it's real money. Million here, million there, you know. Councilman Franklin and Councilman Rowles and I just returned from a lobbying trip to Washington, D.C. We met with the Department of Transportation, the Federal Aviation Administration, Congresswoman Waters, the Director of Urban Initiatives, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing, and others. We told the story of our progress of economic development in Inglewood and how we've fixed our residential sound installation program. The FAA, based on our accomplishments, promised the city an additional $6 million for the residential sound installation program. With an option for $6 million more if we spend the money. I gotta tell you, this is a funny story. They were like wowed, right? And I said, they said, do you need anything? I said, well, we have another 1,000 homes after that to get finished. And he said, wow. He says, well, you know, that's we have like $12 million. He said, but would you mind if we just gave you $6 million to start and we gave you $6 million when you spent that other 6? And I said, it's hard to insult me with $6 million. The officials were very impressed with the progress in Inglewood. And we also sought support for applications we'll make shortly for transportation grants and police officer hiring grants. We have maintained and expanded our connectivity in Washington, and that's brought over $33 million in FAA and policing grants to Inglewood since I've taken office in 2011. We continue to provide essential core services to the community, and there is citywide progress on a number of fronts, and also things to be proud of. The shuttle Endeavor was transported through Inglewood to its new home at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. The 15,000 people that gathered at the Forum Lot and along Manchester Boulevard represented the largest outdoor celebration in the history of the city of Inglewood. We received international recognition as we became a part of national history. In the areas of key economic indicators, year to date, our hotel room tax, also known as the transient occupancy tax, is up. Sales tax receipts are up 6% over the last 5 quarters, and 19%, or $233,000 in just the last quarter. Building permit fees are up, indicating increased building activity. Utility users tax are up about 5%, or $169,000 in the last quarter. I'm thrilled to report that property values are up 12% on the average in Inglewood, indicating greater interest in our city. This increase in assessed values, along with increased sales of real estate in Inglewood, has resulted in a 28% increase in property tax receipts, up $1.4 million. Average real estate inventory times, the average amount of time that a property is on the market from listing to an accepted offer, have dropped from 6 months to 30 days or less. That is a very significant statistic, and I want to thank Ted and Glenda Brass of Brass & Brass Realty for that information. Little plug for the Brass & Brass. Also on the real estate front, investors are purchasing vacant, run-down, blighted, dilapidated, foreclosed properties, doing first-class, beautiful renovations, and leasing them with quick takers. This says two things. One, Inglewood again is a desired place to live, and second, investors want to hold on to these properties for the long term because they believe property values will continue to increase. Madison Square Garden has begun the renovation of the Forum. MSG is in the midst of the essential and exhaustive pre-construction phase of the project, and are pleased to have made significant progress and have continued to comply with their contractual commitments to pursue local hiring goals. Now I'm going to go through hiring goals a little boring, but this is important. This is real money, and you business people, so you want to know, right? You want to know? Yeah. All right. The garden is currently finalizing the design plan. They've hired the well-known and respected construction firm Clark Construction as their general contractor, with a long history in achieving and exceeding local hiring commitments on large projects. I have personally met and was very impressed with the principals of Clark, along with their outreach coordinator, who is responsible for identifying and helping to qualify locally based companies and individuals for the Forum project. To date, MSG has hired 45 local Inglewood residents out of 65 total jobs to fulfill construction and non-construction related work. That's a nearly 70% local employment rate. MSG will be awarding more local work in the coming days and weeks as they move into the hard construction phase. Commitment to local hiring and minority business enterprise remains paramount. In keeping with MSG's commitment to the city, Clark Construction has employed a local outreach manager, Theodora Oye. They have identified and taken meetings with several local contractors, individuals, and businesses to help identify possible subcontracting, vendors, and material supplier opportunities on the job. MSG is currently in the soft construction phase as well, in preparation for the larger and more invasive hard construction work. Prior to the current construction work, half of the on-site workers that helped with the seeding removal were from Inglewood. They're also continuing to doing everything reasonable to assist subcontractors meet and exceed the minority business enterprise and local worker hire goals. They've encouraged large prospective subcontractors to pair up with smaller ones to mitigate any potential bonding barriers. Demo and abatement work has begun, as well as fencing around the perimeter of the arena, trailer setup and site prep. Half of the hired workforce on site are Inglewood residents. In March, they identified and selected an Inglewood-based temporary site fence installer, King Fence. Beginning in April, they are selecting celebrity contracting services to hook up the trailers water, sewer, and corresponding site prep. An Inglewood-based janitorial service to clean the trailers. Their work commenced on 4/18. A subcontractor, American Integrated Services, a certified MBE, hired 40 local workers and laborers to perform demolition work. They are a certified MBE whose current workforce exceeds 40% local residents. The demolition phase will last up to 10 weeks. The Design Decor, a local paint subcontractor, certified MBE, was hired to paint the mock-up. MSG is ahead of schedule on the project. This project, when completed, will bring long-term economic benefits to Inglewood. Economic analysis and forecasts indicate that the project will result in at least $34 million in general fund revenues and $25 million incrementally in property taxes over the next 30 years. This agreement includes performance guarantees. It's estimated there will be 328 full-time jobs during the construction phase and 260 full-time jobs annually after opening. The negotiations include a $250,000 commitment by MSG to support the described local hiring initiatives. After the signing of the development agreement between the city and MSG for the Forum renovation project, Hollywood Park Tomorrow Land Development Company received a commitment of over $180 million in investment capital that will allow them to begin their infrastructure work in the first quarter of 2014. I'm not too much pressure on you, Gerard, is it? This is potentially a $2 billion, with a B, project that is estimated to provide 3,000 jobs when complete. All that remains for us to do is to hold on while our future unfolds before our eyes. There are tough budget decisions to be made in the upcoming budget for the city. Our furloughs are scheduled to expire contractually, and if not reauthorized by the employee groups, they represent over a $3 million increase in expenditures. Increases in employee medical, insurance, and retirement contribution costs will add another $2 million plus to the shortfall. So we'll have to continue to figure out the present as we walk the bridge to our bright and prosperous future. And remember this, a miracle is something that's not supposed to happen, but happens anyway. We've had several miracles this past 2 years that have manifested themselves because of the hard work of our employees and smart decisions by our executive team. Now, I'm going to close with a poem that I read 2 years ago. So those of you that heard it, don't just let the other people hear it, because I read this every Tuesday night on the council days. Everybody thinks I'm looking at my book, but believe it or not, you know, everything I've told you is just hard fact that can be verified, but there are people that seem to think there are things to be unhappy about in our city. We got a lot to be happy about. We are so uniquely positioned. I'll tell you this story. When we were in Washington, we had scheduled meetings with the departments, and you don't get meetings at the White House. They don't meet with mayor delegations that come in because they don't have time for that. So the second day, we got a call from the director of urban initiatives, and that's in the White House. That's somebody that reports to the president. And so it was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. And we got over there, and they said, you know, we heard about you from the Department of Transportation, FAA, and you guys are doing some things, and we're looking for cities that are doing things because that's of interest to us. And I said, well, we're here not asking for handouts, we're asking for investment partners. We want to do things that are going to provide jobs and economic opportunity for our city and the region. And so that half-hour meeting stretched to an hour and a half, and he guaranteed that he would be weighing in with the grant agencies we're seeking grants for. That was very impressive. So when people try to get you sad about things, this is my favorite poem, and it's Don't Quit, and I write Tuesday nights next to it. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a fellow turns about when he might have won, had he just stuck it out. Don't give up though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with just another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to the faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late when night came down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse, you must not quit. Thank you very much.
Again, I want to thank all of our sponsors that made this event possible. I especially want to thank the chamber staff who are here today, and I should have mentioned earlier, Shannon had a kind of a freak accident at home here a week or so ago and broke her ankle, and so she's had surgery and pins and stuff. So that's why she's not here. The only thing to close is how to distribute the centerpiece flowers. We thought of giving them to the oldest person at each table. But I don't have room enough in my car for 19 vases. So we decided to give them to the person whose birthday is closest till today. Now, if you can't do the math there, we've got Jerry Friedman from Marvin Engineering. An engineer over here. I actually was an engineer. So if you have trouble figuring it out, we'll work it out for you. With that, I guess we're done. Thank you.